Today, we will begin working on a Civil War timeline project. You'll find all the resources you need in our folder for Monday 10/5. First, there is the Civil War timeline overview and rubric to explain the project. So we will be using Padlet to create a timeline of important events in the history of the Civil War. It'll be from around 1860 to 1865. You're going to choose 10 events from a list that I'm going to show you in a moment, and you are going to do some research on these different events. On your timeline, you will have to put one post for each event that must include the date, the name of the event, and must be in the appropriate location, which means it has to be in chronological order. You'll also need an explanation of the event, so what happened, why was that event so important to the outcome of the Civil War, or why was it so important to causing the Civil War, and a symbol or illustration to represent the event. Now in Padlet, you're going to have the option to do a Google image search, so we want you to choose images that relate to the event that you are talking about. So here's the list of the topics that you can choose from. Again, there's very many of them on here, so you only have to choose 10 of these to include on your timeline. If you scroll down even further, you'll notice there is a rubric for your timeline, so make sure that it is attractive in terms of design, layout, organization, and neatness. Make sure the items are accurate, especially in terms of where they are chronologically. And then each event should have the required elements, which you'll notice are up here. Each event should include the following. In the folder, you'll also notice a Civil War timeline graphic organizer and a tutorial video. The tutorial video is if you are unsure of how to log into Padlet. This walks you through the process, and it also talks about how to create a timeline in Padlet. So I recommend watching this first. The graphic organizer is optional, and some people have found that it's easier to go through, choose their 10 events, go through the explanation of what happened, why it was important, and then input all that information onto the graphic organizer and then put it onto Padlet afterwards. But again, this organizer is optional. You do not have to complete this. What is important is that for your research, you can use any of the resources from our web quest, and I strongly recommend that you go back in and take a look because many of the events were covered in our web quest. You can use history.com or battlefields.org as well, or any sites that if you go on Google and do a Google search, any museum sites or reputable sources. We're not using Wikipedia as a source. You can go in there to get a general idea of the event that you're looking for, and you can also scroll down to the bottom of Wikipedia. There is usually a list of sources, so you can go there to look for sources on information, but you can't use Wikipedia as a main source. You must also keep track of your sources, whether that's on the graphic organizer, or you can add them to the bottom of each timeline post. Now I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So in Padlet, I've made a mock timeline. So you see each post has a picture. It also has the date and the title of the event. So I made up the first battle of breakfast. Then I have an extensive explanation of what the event was. So we're looking for something, a couple of sentences. It can't just be, it was a battle. I'd like to know some more information about it. Why it was important, a few sentences. Don't just say it was important because it was a battle. And then at the bottom, have your source and the website where you got it from. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Your homework for this evening is to make sure that you have the first 3 events on your Padlet or filled out in your organizer. So tomorrow morning when you come into class, you should have this filled out through event 1, 2, and 3, or have them 1, 2, and 3 on your Padlet.